Hello, I'm Katie Sewell, and this is A Bittersweet Moment with Tiffany Parks.
Hello and welcome to The Bittersweet Life. I'm Tiffany Parks, and this is your midweek Bittersweet Moment. I spent the morning at the beach because today is my husband's birthday, and that's what he wanted to do. And as I was sitting there, I thought, I think I'm going to talk about, on this week's mini episode, Italian beach culture and how it differs from at least my experience with American beach culture. And I don't know that much about the beach culture in other parts of the world, so I can't really speak for that. But I do feel like there's a lot of differences, and there's a lot of, just from my perspective, really weird things about Italian beach life. That Italians just sort of, it's just how things are done. But I think coming from a different country, I still, after over 20 years living here, I still think some of the things that Italians do when it comes to beach are just weird and sometimes even a little ridiculous. So first of all, I should start by saying going to the beach is an Italian obsession. It is something that almost every single Italian loves to do. Now, of course, that does make sense when you think about, if you look at the country on a map and you see how completely surrounded it is by water. But I still think it's a bit excessive. People don't understand why I don't go to the beach more often in the summer. Like they just, like my Italian friends, my sister-in-law, the parents of my son's friends, they all just like look at me like I'm kind of weird if on a Sunday in summer I'm choosing not to go to the beach. That's how obsessed they are. I would put the beach obsession up there with soccer and food as one of the three national Italian obsessions. Again, though my perspective is limited because I live in Rome. I live in a city that is very close to the beach. We are only about 25 minutes of driving away from the beach over here on the west side of the city. Obviously, if you're from the east side of the city, it takes a little bit longer. But you're never really that far. And there are many large Italian cities that are either on the beach, like Naples or Genoa, or that are very close, like Rome or Florence. So, I'm coming from the perspective of someone who lives relatively close from the beach. If you're from Milan, maybe the beach obsession is not as strong. But here in Rome, it seems to me that the going to the beach is all Italians think and talk about once it becomes like the 1st of June. So first of all, you'd think that in a country with so much sea coast, that there would just be these vast expanses of beaches where you could just walk and there would be no people. That is not the case. Maybe that's the case in the very, very, very far south. Maybe in Sardinia, maybe in Sicily, but you know what? I don't even really think there. I think pretty much any sandy beach, because of course not all of the coast is sandy. A lot of it's got those big rocks, which I actually prefer. Any sandy beach or even pebbly beach, like you get down in the Amalfi Coast, in this country is going to have a stabilimento on it, with the exception of the very, very few and far between free public beaches, which are a small percentage when compared to the stabilimento. So what is a stabilimento? It's basically a beach club. It's a privately owned, very small, I wouldn't even call it a club because you don't need to belong to it to go there. But it's a place where the family, it's usually a family who runs that place. They have had it in their family for generations because there is no free, quote unquote, beach space left, like to be taken over. It's all either, official private beaches that you can't, that are protected from building a stabilimento on, or there's already a stabilimento there. So it's always, been in the family for some time. And it's always got, some kind of a bar, as in a coffee bar, or restaurant on it. Usually both. Sometimes the restaurants are very, very basic. Sometimes they're actually quite nice. But there's some kind of of service of that kind, food service. And there are bathrooms, and there's some kind of storage area. And then there is an expanse of beach that is lined with umbrellas and beach chairs. And, there's always a color code, right? So you've got, several stabilimento will be on the same beach, one right after the other. And sometimes these beaches go on for miles. And they've all got their specific color scheme going. So you can sort of tell, you'll see all the green umbrellas, and then it'll switch to yellow, and then it'll switch to blue. And they rent out these little spots. So you can rent an umbrella, 1, 2, or more beach chairs, or the long ones that you lie down on, and you sit there and you enjoy the beach. I get that's what they say. No, I'm just kidding. I do I do enjoy the beach. I just don't really get what the fuss is all about. That's it. But anyway, so the interesting thing is, and we, Claudio and I are not huge beach people. He's one of the rare Italians who's not obsessed with the beach. He likes to go, but he's not, going every weekend like some Italians, like most Italians. He's more of a mountain person. And there is a subset of Italians who really love the mountains and prefer the mountains. But I would say it's like a 5-10% of the population. Definitely not the majority. And interestingly, before I go on to talk about the stabilimento, Italians also, it's like when it's vacation time, and this is not all. I know many exceptions. I have Italian friends who are exceptions, and they go on these extravagant, adventurous vacations to Iceland or New Zealand or Mongolia. That's also a very small exception. Most Italians, when summer vacations roll around, they do one of two things. They go to the beach or they go to the mountains. That's it. Anyway, back to the stabilimento. So, we show up first thing in the morning. Most Italians don't go to the beach first thing in the morning. This is another thing I don't get. And Claudio and I always are shaking our heads about this because most Italians will get up, they'll leave the house around 11 a.m. and then they have to fight traffic. Because in a city like Rome, everybody's going to the beach on a Saturday or Sunday morning. Even on a weekday, you're going to find traffic going towards the beach in summer, any day of the week. And it's always like really bad around 10, 11. And when we go at 7:38, there's never any traffic. You get to the beach and you can't find a place to park because it's too late. Everybody's already there. And this is just one of the things I don't get. Like, wouldn't you want to go in the morning when the water is calm and smooth and cleaner and the air is just cooler and it's less crowded? Like, that's the time we always go because we love it. And, we get there, there's nobody there. Nobody there. For the first hour, maybe the first hour and a half, we were at the stabilimento. There was almost nobody there. I think there was like one other couple. They're an older couple. So that's one thing I don't get. If I could go to the beach at 7, if they opened at 7, which they don't, they open at 8. But if they open at 7, I'd be there at 7 because I love that early morning air. Second thing I don't get is the front row of any stabilimento, right? There's rows of umbrellas, and it depending on how wide the beach is, like from top to bottom, you're going to have 2 would be sort of the bare minimum in a very, very, very narrow beach. You can get 3 is, I would say, still pretty small. 4, 5 is average. And some of those huge beaches have got like 6, 7 rows of umbrellas. And if you show up late and you don't go there often, you don't have abbonamento is the word I'm thinking of in Italian. I can't even think of the word in English that would mean the same thing. But basically, like, you've rented your spot for the whole summer or for at least a month. If you don't have a spot like that, you were in the back. You were in the 5th, the 6th row. And it happened to me once that I went to the beach with some friends last minute on a probably Sunday. And we were in the 5th or the 6th row. And from the way that the sand just sloped up and then back down, I couldn't even see the sea. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I here? I cannot even see the sea from where I am lying. I might as well be in a desert. So that's another thing I don't get. Like, paying that much money because it's not cheap. It's usually about $30 to get an umbrella and 2 chaise longues for the day at an average stabilimento. Then they have deluxe ones that cost a lot more. But at a basic run-of-the-mill stabilimento near Rome, you're going to be paying $30 minimum. So you're spending, a good chunk of money to basically be, have 7,000 people in front of you. So the fact that the beaches near the big cities get so crowded is really what I can't stand. That's the reason that I don't go very often, because I just cannot stand being in this huge crowd of people, and, I just don't feel like I'm at the beach. So that's another thing I don't really get. So there's nobody in the first line. There's nobody in the first line because those spots are rented for the month or maybe for the summer. And if you want to rent a spot at the beach, I have no idea how much it costs because I've never had the desire. But if you want to rent a spot at the beach, nobody uses your spot if you don't go. If you don't show up that day, they don't rent it out to anyone else on the day of. And obviously, people work, especially in June. It's not really a holiday month like July and August are. So there's not a lot of people who are just on vacation in June and going to the beach every day. So those spots are just empty. Again, I don't know. This just doesn't make sense to me why you would rent. Please, I hope that one of our Italian listeners writes in and tells me what I'm missing, because I just don't get the appeal. I get the idea of going like once in a while, like we do. Like, you're getting hot. The city's terribly hot. You want to see the sea. You want to go in, and you go. You make the effort. You drive over there. You pay your money. You get your straio or your lettino, and you go in the sea, and, you get to have some sea water. But let me tell you, near Rome, the water is gross. Okay? It's not always dirty and polluted, although some areas of Rome are very dirty and polluted. And certain beaches, I don't go in the water. I would not go in. There are certain beaches in Rome that have a lot of really great sort of nightclubs all the way up and down the beach, and really great restaurants. And they're really great, like, if you want to go for aperitivo or for dinner at the beach and take a walk. And that I'm all up for that, because everyone's off the beach by that time and everybody's in the clubs or in the restaurants or gone home. The water at those beaches is so bad that if I were to go during the day, I literally wouldn't go in the water. Where we go is a little bit cleaner. It's the sand is very dark. It's a volcanic area, and the water is a bit cleaner and a bit clearer. Although today, I gotta say, in mid-June, it's not that late in the season yet. Early in the morning, I went into the water about 9 o'clock. The water was brown. Now, that's probably just sand that is mixed up with the water, but still, if you're down in Sardinia, if you're in Puglia, if you're like diving off of an island in the Amalfi Coast, I totally get it. I get how beautiful the sea is. I have nothing against the sea. It's the beach that I don't like. But in Italy, unless you live somewhere with those big rocks, like the Amalfi Coast, which are not popular, by the way, Italians don't like to go there. Some do. Some. But most Italians, they want beach. They want to be lying on their lettino, under the sun, baking on the beach with the sand. I'm like, give me a scoglio, which is what they call those big gray rocks that you dive off. Give me one of those any day, and I am happy as a clam. Of course, the stabilimento can't work there because there's no place to put the lettini and the umbrellas, and so maybe that's why people don't go there. I don't know. But the water is just, it's not like when you go to like a tropical island and you go into the sea or into the ocean and it's just crystal clear and you can see the bottom of the sea for like 4 meters down. I get that. I would sign up for that any day. But it's like the water's brown. Interesting. It doesn't really feel refreshing. It's hot. The water was like bath water. It was at least as warm as I'm not going to say a jacuzzi, but a heated pool, let's say. And a little bit later in the morning, around 10:30, 11, there starts to be lots of bubbles on the top of the water. Now, when you get the bubbles on the top of the water, that means that water is not very clean. So again, explain to me, Italians, why are you all obsessed with going somewhere that is hot, crowded, expensive, and has dirty water? I don't get it. And I'm not saying I would rather be at a pool, because I always would choose to swim in a natural body of water before swimming in a pool. But I get why you go. I understand it, but why the obsession? Why this is the only thing that is possible to do on a Sunday in summer is go to the beach? Sorry, I'm kind of ranting because I was just at the beach today. And I also get really bored at the beach. And I go in the water frequently because, it's more fun, I suppose, floating around, playing with my son. I get why families take their kids there because it's super fun for kids because they get to play with a ball or they get to build a sandcastle, jump in the surf. But Italians, and I know I'm really picking on Italians today, and I know that our listenership leans heavily to Americans and other English-speaking countries. So we don't have tons of Italian listeners, but we do have some, and I know that. And so I'm not trying to drag you guys. I honestly am not. But just help me understand. Italians don't go into the sea very much. So maybe that's because the water is not clean, which, again, why are you there? And instead they lie on a lettino and they bake themselves. And they really love to get tan. And you'll see them, they'll turn their beach chairs like the hand of a clock to follow the sun. Whereas I'm like underneath the umbrella with a sun shirt on, a hat, and 3 pounds of sunscreen because otherwise I'm going to get a rash. See, I'm just not made for the beach. That's the thing. I'm not made for this lifestyle. So again, why are you there? Why, if you're not going in the sea? Okay. I'm going to stop now because I've probably alienated a large portion of our audience, but I would like to know if you are one of those Italians who loves the beach. And again, if you're from Sardinia, you're not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Romans, the people, going to Viareggio or Rimini, places like that. What is the appeal? Tell us. We want to know, and we'll share it with our listeners. This has been a very ranty mini episode. I hope if you're still with me, thank you for listening. And enjoy your summer wherever it might be, in the mountains, at the beach, by the lake, or in a beautiful city. I hope you have a great time wherever you are. And join us again. Bye.